Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. Behind me is a 2006 Mazda 6 with a broken water pump housing. This should be a pretty quick repair video. When we pull it off, I'll show you the common failure point and how you can get a better aftermarket part so this doesn't fail again in the future. So the lighting will be a little challenging because of where the sun is this morning, but we'll try to make it work. So the water pump is under this. You have this tensioner up here. It's belt driven off of this cam pulley back here, and it's right underneath. So first thing we need to do, pull this air box off, and that'll give us the access we need. We also need to drain the coolant. Now this water pump is leaking, so I believe there's enough coolant already drained from the system to pull this water pump off and put the new one back on. So we'll get started with this box. We've got a little connector here. Pull that off. We got this, 4 clips. Comes off here. Now this hose up top, it's a little green connector that we just push up and it slides off. So it's just this green thing here. And that can just get put out of the way. Looks like possibly a 10 millimeter. Oh, that's already loose. Maybe somebody was already in here. Get the air filter out. We have a connector over here. Disconnect. I believe this whole thing is just held on with grommets. You just pull up on it like that. Let's see, this hose here is connected right here. Pull that off, come up. There we go. Let me show you on the new one because I'm afraid the lighting might make it a challenge for you guys to see what I'm doing. But we have 3 hoses to disconnect. This one here, that's the broken one right here. On the old one is a plastic little piece here that the hose clamps onto. It's broken right there. So this is an all aluminum piece, but we have this hose to get off. We have this hose to get off, and then there's one underneath that we need to get off as well. Once those all hoses are off, we have 3 bolts that hold this whole housing to the car. So that's what we're working on. First, I'm just gonna pull the belt off. It's a 15 millimeter. It'll come off pretty easy. You can replace the belt if it looks like it needs it. This one doesn't look too bad. I'm gonna disconnect this bottom hose. This bottom hose here, I'm gonna disconnect it not from here, but there's another pipe down here I'm gonna disconnect it from because it's easier to get to, and I'll disconnect it off of the pump later once I unbolt the pump a little. Hopefully these little hoses will come off. Sometimes when they're old like this, they really like to stick. If needed, you can use a pick to get underneath the hose, in between the hose and the pipe. There we go. Got a little more coolant coming out. Let me put a catch pan underneath. So if yours is like mine, all the plastic is super brittle and it's actually breaking as I'm trying to get stuff apart. There's a little Y, or not a Y, but like a T down there, a little plastic T where this hose up here goes into. That was just brittle and snapped off. So we'll have to figure that out. Just something for you guys to keep in mind while you're working on yours, is it could be old and brittle. So I'm gonna take the upper radiator hose off. Okay, got that upper hose off. I'm just gonna put it aside, and all that is doing is giving us room to work with. Now this too is plastic, so just be careful with all the plastic stuff. I've been finding mine is just not wanting to survive. So we'll pull this hose off here. Okay. And on all the hoses I've had to use a pick. I don't think these have been off since they were put on in 06. Perfect. Usually once you get it in between, it breaks it up pretty good. There we go, out of the way. A little coolant leaking. And this is just loose because it's broke down here. So we'll have to get that off once the pump is out of the way. And then we have this upper hose here. That clamp is just in the wrong direction for us to get to it. All right, so next we want to get a 3-jaw puller. We're gonna pull this pulley off. So my jaws are too long. These are adjustable. They have 2 holes in them. So that's all I'm doing right now is just moving them. Moving them down. All right, so shorten them up some. That should have done the trick. So your socket size might be different than mine. You can rent these from the auto parts store. There we go. Not too bad. So now we have access to our bolts. So now we still have that top hose. I was hoping we could twist it to get that clamp a little better. I think we can. Get my pliers. I'm just trying to twist it so I can put it in a better spot, and then I'll grab it. Let me move you. I don't know if you can even see what I'm trying to get. So it's just this clamp here. I was rotating it so I can get a better bite on it. There we go. See where I put my pick. Right here. So just use the pick again. Get it under there. Hopefully it'll just twist off. Perfect. That's it. So this little plastic piece, that nipple right there, broke. So we'll address that in a second. Oh, but let me show you. Right there, that little plastic thing right there, that broke off. It's supposed to be that angled piece. Now we can work on getting that off of that hose. There we go. At least got, ouch, whew. Those clamps, they're springy. It just popped off of my pliers and scared me. Didn't hurt me, but scared me. Okay, let's get this off. Got it. There, that's that broken angled piece. So I'm just gonna pop off this hose here real quick. I'll take it with me. I think I'm just gonna go to the hardware store, see if I can get like a brass T-fitting. Hopefully they'll have the size I need. There we go. Okay, that's it for dismantling. We're gonna clean up this area really well. I'm gonna get a new fitting for this, and then when we come back, we'll install everything. So believe it or not, the parts store actually had this whole piece. This is the heater hose. This is that little pipe that broke, the plastic. The new one is aluminum. We don't need this whole piece, but I am just gonna take it off of here, maybe. I would think for a new part it would come right up. All right, separated it. So this is just what we need here. This goes on the bottom right here. So we will go ahead and do that while we have it out. Now what I like to do, let me show you real quick. I like to use a little lubricant paste inside the hose. Slides on easier, and it also keeps the rubber nice and fresh longer. So just put that in like that. And it'll slide over the little pipe better too. Okay, like that, good. All right, got it on. I had to reorient this little part of it. So now, let's see how we're gonna just put it in to get these hoses on. What I'm gonna do, again, is just use some of this little lubricant. I'm gonna put it on here, put it on here. That'll just help the hose slide on better and off better in the future. Okay, so that one, neither of them have their hose clamp. We'll put this back on like that. Take the other one off the other one. So let me, I also need to pull out that broken piece. Let me get that off real quick. So this hose is attached to a little bracket. We can pop that bracket off. So I have to get that broken plastic piece out of the end of it. I think I'm just gonna see if I can crush it like that, like that. And then use a pick. Let's see where I put my pick. And then I'm just gonna pick it out, just like that. Yeah, perfect. It's just coming out in a million little pieces. Just gonna peek in there with a flashlight. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so I'm gonna put this on first, because it looks like it'll be a challenge once it's on, once it's bolted down. So just do it now. Get some of this paste. There, perfect. Nice. There we go. Okay. So, needless to say, this one with the thermostat's gonna be more of the challenge. Oh, perfect. There we go. That wasn't too bad. get the hose clamp. I think that's the biggest problem is the hose clamps. I just got a different pair with a little angle on them. I don't know if that'll really do much though. They make special pliers. I just need to man up and get a pair. I think I can do it. All the hoses on. So all I have to do from here is get these clamps on. If I can get these clamps on, home free. Try to get them in the same spot they were. Okay, that's pretty close. Probably as close as I can get it under the circumstances. So I'll get the top one on. All right, man, that was hard. So now we just got these 3 bolts to put back. Perfect. 1, 2, there we go. 8mm. Just gonna snug those down. They don't have to be crazy tight, but just good and snug. I can plug this bottom hose in. Put the clamp on it first. So now it looks like I'm gonna pull that little small one off of the little T because I got it routed wrong, and it is easy to get access to. So you could put that on after the fact, and it should be easy to get to. You gotta be careful with that small one because you don't want it to get too close to the exhaust. Yep, so that can definitely go on afterward. I was afraid it would be hard to get to, but it's not. And we can put our pulley on. So this takes a different tool for installation. Just put it on like that, tap it a little, and then it threads in like that. I'll put that on as far as we can. You can rent this tool from the auto parts store if you don't own one, which makes it pretty convenient. So my GoPro shut off because it got too hot. So I don't know exactly where I was, but special tool to put it in. You can get that from the auto parts store. And you're just pretty much pressing it back on. And if you notice when it goes back on, if it's a little crooked, you just take a little hammer and you're just tapping lightly to get it centered up. Okay, got it all back together. My GoPro kept dying, sitting out in the sun recording, and it just was overheating. So really, I can't remember where it died, but getting this pulley on, it's just an installer. And you bolt it on. If it's going on a little crooked, just take a little hammer to tap it back straight. And then just suck it in until it bottoms out. Other than that, it was just these 2 radiator hoses went back on, clamps, the air stuff went back on, plug in your electrical connectors, and that was pretty much it. Now, as far as topping off the coolant, you want to fill the degas bottle over there on the passenger side to the full mark, maybe just a little past the full, and let it gas out, and it'll keep dropping and keep filling it up until it stops dropping. Then go ahead and start the car. Let it warm up until the cooling fan turns on. Turn the heat on to full blast hot. That'll help the heater hoses and stuff also bleed out any air in them. And then raise the RPM up to about 25,000 RPM. Do that for a few minutes. Just hold it there for a few minutes. Keep an eye on your temperature gauge. You don't want it to overheat. If it looks like it's getting a little too hot, go ahead and stop, turn the car off, and make sure that you still have coolant in the degas bottle. After a few minutes, let it idle for a second, come out, check, top it off, fill it up just past the full mark, go back in, rev it up to about 3.5, and just kind of flutter 3.5, back to idle, 3.5, back to idle. Do that a few times. That'll speed up the water pump and really push the coolant around the engine and flush any of those air bubbles out. So do that a few times, let it idle again for a little bit, turn the car off, let it cool down, and then top it off one final time. And you may notice over a day or two that it is still burping. That's okay, just keep topping it off. The main important part is to watch your temperature gauge so it doesn't overheat. And that's it, we're done. All right, there you go. That's how you can replace a water pump housing on one of these Mazda 6 with the 3-liter. The hardest part actually of this whole job was getting those hose clamps back on the hoses just because of where they're located. Now they do make special hose clamp pliers. I'm thinking of getting a hold of one. I just don't need them too often, but on a job like this, they would definitely come in handy and make the job just that much more pleasurable. Otherwise, keep an eye out for that T, a little plastic T snapped off on me. So just keep that in mind. You know, any of that plastic stuff could break on you. It's old, brittle. So the auto parts store happened to have one on hand. Perfect. Went ahead and replaced it. Other than that, a pretty straightforward job. You only need a special tool to pull that pulley off, put that pulley back on, but you can get those from the local parts store. So if you don't own one yourself, just get them from the parts store, and then you can return them and get your money back. All right, that's it. Well, thanks for watching. Like, subscribe. See you on the next one.